Coming up on episode 109 of the Behind the Back podcast, the San Francisco 49ers, they stood pat at the trade deadline. I know they made moves before that, but on trade deadline day, there was a lot of noise. So Ben gives his take on the trade deadline news, and then we preview the 49ers versus Rams round 2. Battle for the division going on here. So Ben gives his score and his predictions and his keys. Then we move on over to Philadelphia. Coming off of a bye week, Eagles got a good vibes coming out of the bye week. I think a lot of news, a lot of moves coming out of the trade deadline for Philly, kind of the opposite here. But I go over those moves. Ben gives his takes on some of those moves as well. And then we preview a very highly touted matchup on Monday night against the Green Bay Packers, who coming in a little bit shorthanded. So we definitely address that and talk about what the keys are there and my prediction for that game. And then we move on to Sacramento. We hash some things out. I give Ben an apology, but I also roast him for something else. We talk about the roster. We talk about some moves. Welcome Precious Achiuwa. We talk about what this lineup might look like here in just a few weeks when we get Keegan Murray back. So with that being said, guys, let's get it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben, the Jet. Rets, Ben, my brother, how are you doing? How was your? It's been a minute. How was your Halloween? Because we're over here on this side. It wasn't that busy. We didn't get a single kid that passed by. They were all in the street. So it was a weird first time Halloween experience. You know, as a homeowner, it's like, you know, we were really excited for it, and it didn't happen. I wanted to start the pod off by asking how your Halloween was.
You know, I would love to have like a better story to give here, but the unfortunate part was I pick up this bag of candy Friday. I'm stoked because, you know, we moved apartments, so we're a little bit more on the inside. So I'm like, okay, like there's more apartments around us now. Like I see kids around here all the time. I'm like, all right, this is cool. So I'm like excited. I buy this whole bag of candy and I set up a bowl. Girlfriend and I sit down. We start watching a movie. I'm up on the couch. Like I'm just feeling like an old dad just sitting there like waiting for these trick-or-treaters, man. Not a single kid came knocking on our door. I don't understand. Like all we could attest or all we could put it to was that they probably went to the richer neighborhoods that aren't apartments, but like houses to try and get like the full-size candy bars.
Yeah, we kind of thought the same thing, which was really disappointing. Yeah, I went out and you can see the street so I walked out a little bit towards my car and I see the kids walking along the main road, which has houses there. So I'm like, okay, they probably just went in the neighborhood, but it sucks. So I was like, we're on the lower level. I felt like, you know, it was weird. It felt like we could have totally just done it. They just all stayed away. It was so weird. But yeah, interesting start to Halloween. So random sidebar. Just wanted to start with that. But as you guys got in the intro, welcome back to the show. It's been a minute and we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We got Eagles back in the game. We got Niners and we got Sacramento Kings. More beef, man. Ben and I have been nonstop just going at each other here over text. So we gotta break that down a little bit. So let us start. We got to start in San Francisco. And the trade deadline for the NFL finished yesterday. Today is Wednesday. It ended yesterday. And it was a lot of interesting movement, a lot of big moves, but a lot of moves weren't made as well. And I think one of the teams that people thought were going to be making a move were the San Francisco 49ers, and they didn't. They stood pretty pat outside of the two trades we talked about last week. So what was your initial take on the fact? Did you think that, oh man, like I'm ready going into trade deadline that morning? You're like, okay, this guy's coming our way. And then to ultimately not have that happen, how was your trade deadline for you?
Well, you know, I texted you Sunday night and I was like, that Trey Hendrickson to the 49ers tweet is going to go so hard, right? And I was like, just kind of speaking it into existence. Monday came around, that didn't happen. So I hit you with a few more names where I'm like, you know, this is going to hit. Like, this is going to be awesome. Not a single one happened. And initially, I think I was upset because I'm like, you know, as a sports fan, you love seeing these trades happen, especially when it comes to your team. You love getting these, you know, fancy diamonds of players out there. And it's like, you know, it's an exciting thing, this trade deadline, especially now in the NFL. It's gotten more fun. So I was a little bit disappointed from that front, but I started to kind of reevaluate it. And I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking back to like how my take on this team was going to be this year is like, this is a growing year. This is almost, you know, a bridge year in a lot of ways for these young players. Like, it's not necessarily the year to go all out. And when you apply that kind of thinking towards it, it makes a lot of sense. And the other side of it is like, you 100% know as a Niners fan that John Lynch had his phone ready. He was calling, he was making calls. Like, it wasn't like he wasn't going out and trying to get players. If this franchise has proven one thing in the John Lynch era, it's that whenever they feel like they're a piece or two away, they go and get that piece, you know, a la Christian McCaffrey. So I just feel like the 49ers, one, didn't have a good enough offer on the table to make a trade, whether it be trading somebody out to get picks or the other way around, trading picks to get a guy. I don't think the deal made the most sense for this organization because you didn't want to mortgage your future to take a rental player, right? You wanted to have a player who would be here for a few years and the potential to re-sign. A Trey Hendrickson, you're not going to trade a first round, second round pick for probably, and maybe more depending on Cincinnati and what they were wanting, hence why he's still there. So the asking prices for a lot of these players, just ones who moved, ones who didn't move, it just seemed really high this year. So I'm looking at it from that regard, and I'm like, okay, the 49ers have a ton of picks going into next year. This is a successful year through 9 weeks, right? Sucks because you lost a ton of players to injuries, but you look at it and you're like, our future is still bright. You've got pieces to work with now. You hit on your draft last year. Now, if you can just do it again with other draft picks, who knows where, you know, some of these guys are going to be at next year from being better and playing better standpoint. So I don't think the splash move needed to happen. I'm okay with the 49ers not making a move outside of the Keon White.
No, I agree. I think when we look at some of these other trades, like you mentioned, I think that, you know, I think this would have been different for the Niners if your guys were healthy. You know, if you had your stars on the back end. Well, first off, if you had them, you probably wouldn't need to scour the trade market, but who knows, every team looks to improve, right? But I think that it would have made more sense, especially for a guy like a Trey, you know, or one of those premier defensive ends. Like, do you really want to take the chance on a rental? Like, it for you guys, what does one of those superstars do for you right now, right this second for me? So I think that for the Niners, this was good that they stood pat. I mean, I understand like the want for more, but if it doesn't make sense, there's no need to force it. And you guys will have plenty of opportunities to spend picks next year because people are going to want 2027 picks too. It's going to be, these next couple of draft classes are going to be loaded. So I also don't like the argument of like, oh, John Lynch has an up and down track record with the draft, right? It's like just because it's up and down doesn't mean he hasn't had good draft picks, and obviously haven't been looking at the most, few recent drafts here where the players have been starting to hit a little bit here. So I think that, you gotta just, I think it's hard in the trade deadline. Everyone wants more and they expect a lot more. Some teams get it and it's, it's cool and it could change the course of, the season, a la the Colts, or maybe not the Cowboys. That feels like a star trade that felt kind of like a waste, right? So it's that. Imagine if the Niners did that. I felt like it would have had a similar feeling to the Cowboys. Not as much of a joke because the Cowboys were where they were, but I think in the sense of like, oh, cool, they got this star name and that'll be more effective next year when everyone's back. But right now it's like, okay, that's cool, that helps, but that doesn't make them a contender in our eyes. And that's the problem you will be facing for the rest of the way is like, how seriously is everyone going to take the Niners, even though you guys do keep stacking wins? And I know we'll talk about, who you guys have to go up against here. So it'll be interesting. But I think trade deadline wise, I think you guys did just fine, and you got some depth pieces, right? But, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that you guys didn't do anything.
No, and already you've seen so many like promising things from these young players. Um, from a standpoint of just having to continue to lean on these young players as the season goes, rather than trading for a veteran and potentially taking away some playing time for somebody who else could, rather use it. I'm happy with it. Like I'm thrilled with where the season's at. I like John Lynch, like the guys who are in the building, both injured and healthy. I think this is still a solid team. If you look at this 53 man completely healthy, this is a really good team. Like, and it's exceptional coaching as well. So I really can't argue with just standing pat the way that they did. That's kind of where I sit.
No, and that's totally fair. I think it's a good place to be. 6-3, like you guys, are in a in an incredible spot. And I don't think that I think you guys, with all the injuries, with all the challenges that you've faced, I think this is kind of unlike how I feel about the Kings. The optimism really should be there for the Niners, because of what you can be. And I know that it's frustrating just having to wait for the product because it really is going to be a next year feeling. But you guys get to take that kind of you guys can be that sleeping giant that's gonna come back and remind everybody just how good they can be when fully healthy next year. So I think the Niners are in a good spot. Did you have any other trade deadline takeaways before we get down to this? Okay, so let's talk about the Rams game, dude. So here, back home in Levi Stadium against the Rams, what are you how confident are you going into this game?
Well, you remember game one? We were sitting here for game one. We did the same thing. Like, how confident do we feel? At the time, this was fresh off of a Nick Bosa injury. I'm like, man, like the lack of edge presence is going to be concerning. Stafford's going to be able to sit back and like wheel and deal all day long. It's going to be pretty lights out for that team. The only hope we have is keeping up offensively. And the 49ers came out and proved both of us wrong. They also proved a lot of America wrong and a lot of, fans and media and analysts and podcasters. Like, that was a game that not many people had circled and saying that, the 49ers were going to win outside of maybe 49ers fans. So game one was wild. All right. Niners on a short week after losing Nick Bosa, like I said, is a clutch win. That was the Mac Jones game where he pops off for 350, 2 touchdowns. He was 33 of 49 through the air. Alfred Collins, welcome to the NFL moment. Awesome punch out on Kyron, made Kyron cry at the end of the game. And that was, that was kind of when you realize as a 49ers fan, like this team has something like a little bit of fire that people don't expect. And this is where you started to get kind of antsy from week to week because you're like, okay, they're injured. They keep getting injured, but they keep finding ways to win. So round 2 is going to be interesting because round 2s in general between these two teams, you typically don't see a shutout. You don't see one of these teams sweeping the other. But Shanahan does like revenge games. He's not going into this one as a revenge game. He's going into this one as a defend his season title game against Sean McVay. So there's going to be a coach battle as always between these two. I think these two coach some of their better games against each other and coach more aggressive against each other than they otherwise would. So I always love a Niners-Rams game. But let's talk about this Rams team for 2 seconds because I don't care too much about them. The Rams are 6-2. Stafford's been balling. I mean, at 37, Marcos, he might be peak Stafford right now. Like, there's no other way to put it other than like he's thrown 21 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, 2,100 passing yards through 9 weeks. Dude's cooking. Like, he's on a heater. And they're coming off of a massive victory against the New Orleans Saints. Mind you, Saints aren't a great team. But the 49ers struggled to close out that game early on, right? And you can't make these comparisons necessarily. But when you look at what the Rams did to the Vikings last week, you can see how they would be coming into this game feeling pretty confident. So Puka Nakua's got kind of like a rib thing going on right now, and he's been limited through practice this week. This is a divisional game. This is a game that the Rams need because the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Niners are all at the top of this division right now, fighting and jostling for position. So the Rams know the implications on this game. I would be shocked if Puka doesn't play. Devontae, insane right now. Tutu Atwell, playing really well. Their defense this year. A lot of people would think it's like, it's all right. It's, it's just like there's some holes. They do some things wrong. They're rated second in points allowed per game. Mind you, they've played some lighter teams, but albeit, this defense is something that, yes, the 49ers found success earlier on in the season with quarterback play and an elite Kendrick Bourne game, but to run that back is going to be hard. 49ers in this one. No Freddie Ruger, no Fred Warner. You didn't have Juwan Jennings in game 1. You have him in game 2. New additions to the edge in Keon White, Cleveland Farrell. Last week, both of them played really well. Cleveland Farrell getting his first sack with the 49ers this season. It was kind of a crazy sack play. He ran from one side to the other and then back to the middle and then hits him from the back, hits Jackson from the back. So, I love the play that I saw from Keon White and Cleveland Farrell in that game. Tatum Bethune is coming off of a Fred Warner-like game with his 16 tackles. Awesome decision-making plays, so on and so forth. I gave him my game ball in my post-game. Check it out if you haven't already. Ricky Pearsall, still not practicing. I doubt that he's going to play this week. He's coming back from that PCL strain. I mean, he's a wide receiver. Anything with the knee, you need to be super careful of. So I think they're taking their time with Ricky. Ricky's taking his time as well. It sucks because you think about the injury history, I know, but a lot of it's just kind of situational and you got to be careful. So hopefully he's back on the field soon. Don't expect it this week. Here's where the good news of the injury report does come in, Marcos. We get our center, Jake Brendel, back. He's missed the last 2 weeks, has a chance to play this week. Bryce Huff is expected to play after missing 2 weeks with his hammy. Starting left guard, Ben Barch, also on track to play. So we're getting some O-line depth back. We're getting some of these key players back. They'll help Mac out a ton. And then from your defensive line where you're already short on your edges, now you've, like I said, you went and got Keon White. You went and signed Cleveland Farrell. Now you're adding back Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff, for all you Philly fans, he needs 8 more sacks, and then y'all get a conditional pick. So otherwise, that pick belongs here in San Francisco. But I'm looking for him to have an explosive game here. So while we're talking about Bryce, he's not necessarily a key for me, but he's going to be a huge piece for this offense when it comes to how they want to attack this Rams offense. This is, without a good Bryce Huff game, this is going to be a really tough game. I think you could see Matt Stafford popping off pretty big if you don't find some pressure on him. So now the question is, and this is the big topic, Mac Jones or Brock Purdy? Shanny said that Brock will have his toe thing all year. It sucks, but it's kind of like the nature of this injury. It doesn't really fully go away until you can really get off of it for an extended period of time. Yes, he's not participating in games, but he's been limited at practices now for a couple weeks. So it's not like he's not playing football. So does Brock come back this week? Says he wasn't close to playing against the Giants. Is that just a mind game thing by Kyle Shanahan again versus the Rams? Or is it because of MetLife turf? Is he really still very deep in this toe injury recovery? Who knows, right? Either way, both players are banged up, Mac and Purdy. And they'll be banged up probably through the remainder of the season. Both do give you an opportunity to win this game. And a lot of it falls on the head of your snake, which is Christian McCaffrey. Christian's got to have a big game. I think Christian has shown now that he can head the horse this season. He's the only guy out there that, knock on wood, has survived all season long. And he is playing at an extremely elite level, putting up numbers that you haven't seen before through this many weeks. So I think this has got to be a big Christian McCaffrey game, a big Mac game, and you got to see something from Bryce Huff too, and the rest of that defense nonetheless, right? If you really want to compete with this Rams team right now. So before we get to these key matchups and the keys to a win, I'm going to toss it over to you because I know you've played this Rams team once this season. From the 49ers side of things, what do you think the 49ers need to do? What do you expect to see from the Rams? Rams didn't do anything at the trade deadline, at least not on trade deadline day. But I want to get your side of things because I know you'll have something to say about this Rams team.
I think from a Niners side of thing, I agree with you completely. I think McCaffrey needs to be special. I think Mac Jones needs to have a very similar outing to what he had last time, which I think he can. I know that the Rams did add Roger McCreary, not on trade deadline day, but they did add him prior to. So they tried to shore up their corner room a little bit, which has kind of been their Achilles heel to that awesome defensive front. I do respect more than anything on that Rams team the defensive front. I think they're a truly nasty unit. They're young, they're fast, and they are in your face. But they can be mitigated if you, with the exact style that the Niners like to play offensively, and Mac can get the ball out quick, isn't forced to hold on to it too long. I can see them having a big game offensively if they just focus on attacking through the air and not pulling any punches. Let Mac make a mistake, because I know that you can force Stafford. I know he's playing well. Like, I know he's having an MVP season, but I've seen him. You can take advantage of Matt Stafford. One of his picks came against us. One of his losses came against us, just like yours. Like, I think that I do agree that, like, it's hard to think that the Niners, like, I wouldn't pick the Niners, 9 times out of 10 to win this matchup, right? I just think that, like, the odds are stacked against them again. The Rams are the healthier, they're playing better ball right now collectively. They've seemed to figure some things out that were getting in their way during our losses. But I also don't know how much I trust them, because I think the Rams are a really good team, but I think the Niners are they're always in your way. They're always going to make things difficult. And I think that if you guys can stay close with them, keep it close at half, I think you guys have a really good chance. If you let them get hot, and we're talking about them being up like 17-0, in the first, 15, 20 minutes or so, then that's going to be a different conversation. But I think if you guys just hang in there, score on one of the first 2 possessions, I think you guys are going to be in that whole game, and it's going to go down to the wire, in which case I think, I think the Rams, their biggest weakness is themselves in close, tightly contested games. I think they overthink things. They take the ball out of Stafford's hands consistently, even though they know they shouldn't. So I think that, like, the Rams' biggest weakness is themselves. So if you're within puncher's chance, you can definitely force them into some errors.
100%. That's good stuff. So let's get into these key matchups, and these are also kind of the keys to the game for me. So the first one for me is this Rams D-line versus the 49ers offensive line. Braden Fisk finally got his first sack last week against the Saints. He's been a pressure machine all season long. He just hasn't really been able to finish plays, kind of like Jalen Phillips. I'm sure Marcos will have something to say about that. So, 49ers D-line versus or O-line versus this Rams D-line is going to be a big one to watch, as especially you want to keep Mac clean. You want to keep whoever your quarterback is back there clean. If it's Mac, he's not going to be able to take off. And I said these same things in week 1, or, in this first matchup versus the Rams. So I'm keeping an eye on that matchup. My second one is the 49ers defensive line versus Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. Because last week, the Rams seemingly, if you ask Rams fans and Rams media, found their run game versus the New Orleans Saints. Corum averaged 4.5 yards per carry on 13 attempts. Kyron Williams was 114 yards on 25 carries, 4.6 per attempt, and he had a touchdown. So, Salah's going to need to dial up a great scheme to stop the run. You're going to have to lean on Bethune at linebacker. You're going to have to lean on D. Winters at linebacker. If both of them are good to go, both of them are limited in practice this week, so we'll see. I think they'll both play. But they'll need to be at the top of their game. And, Fred Warner was a lot of the reason why run games weren't working for many teams. They would get past our D-line, but good luck getting past Freddie. And now without Freddie in game 2 versus the Rams, you've got to lean on now these young guys. So I think either one of those linebackers are capable of doing it, we'll see how they dial it up and scheme it, but keep an eye on those. The last one. This is interesting. Because if you asked me last year, this wouldn't be a key. Special teams, guys. Last year, the Niners, as we all know, they sucked on special teams. I mean, 31st, 32nd in the NFL. Wild numbers. This year, the Niners, under special teams coach Brent Boyer, are 4th in the NFL in EPA, coming in at 17.3. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Rams are a negative 23.7, which is 31st in the NFL on special teams. Now, we're talking about special teams right now, and the Rams just made an adjustment on their special teams, similar to that of like what happened with Jake Moody for the 49ers. The Rams just signed Harrison Mavis, a.k.a. Thicker Kicker. And, bro's 21 to 22 coming out of the XFL. So his percentage is up there. He's definitely going to be an upgrade, I'm sure. But a lot of their problem wasn't necessarily missed kicks so much as block kicks as well. It's also on coverage as well. So I'm looking at the 49ers in this matchup, and I'm actually feeling for the first time in a while like there's an advantage here. And a lot of it falls on if this is a close ball game down the stretch and special teams comes into play, expect the 49ers to be the team who comes out on top. In divisional games, you see this often where these things come down to the wire. Special teams and whoever gives you the better opportunities throughout that game, whoever comes up clutch, are the ones who win the game. And that happened in the 49ers game, against the Rams. That's happened in multiple games against the Rams and vice versa over the years. So I'm looking at the 49ers in this one to once again win the special teams battle, provide sparks where needed, set yourself up for success defensively, offensively, make life as difficult as possible for the defense and offense of the Rams to do anything. And that's all you can really do is just give yourself an advantage where it's needed. So those are kind of the matchups I'm keeping an eye on. Those are kind of the things that you can kind of attribute to keys. And if the 49ers, dial up a scheme like they did in game 1, matchup 1, and they do something similar like that and attack this game the way that they did with the mindset of we're not going to be underdogs, whether you want to consider us that or not, you run a good chance. And by the way, last bit of history, I'll toss it back over to you. The 49ers, this is the first time in almost a calendar year that the 49ers are underdogs in Levi's Stadium. The last time was the game where we were eliminated from playoff contention last year against the Detroit Lions. That was a Lions team that was cooking at the time, pre a lot of injuries. But this was a team that, 49ers at the time, you were dealing with so many injuries again, and the season was just about wraps. So it made sense. Right now, both these teams are similar positions, and the 49ers have proved they've beaten the Rams already, but they want to put the Rams as 3.5-point favorites. So, this is what we got to deal with. But, 49ers just got to go out and kind of do their thing.
Okay, so before I go, what's your score?
I got 27-24 Niners. I think it's going to be a close ball game. I think, right now the betting line is 50.5 points, total points in the game. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I think these are two defenses that make mistakes. These are two offenses that show explosives. This is going to be the kind of game that comes down to the wire. This is going to be the kind of game that gets high-scoring. That's why I say 27-24.
I think that's a great score. I think the betting side of things, like you mentioned, so them being 3.5-point dogs at home to the Rams, I think is I think this is a semi sign of respect in the sense of they were 8.5 underdogs on the road last time, even though they were playing at home. So I just thought that I think they gave them kind of that benefit of the doubt. They're yes, you are underdogs, but you're not such huge underdogs. We'll give you. You guys proved us wrong last time, right? But I do think that, man, it's gonna be hard. I've been wrestling with this one because I kind of have a feeling if I want to pick the Rams, but I will pick a score for the Niners that's gonna be ridiculous. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be kind of like the Jags Raiders score, 30-29, because it's gonna come down to some BS. It's gonna if it gets close. I think Sean McVay will fumble the opportunity. I think he's just shown it in a couple big spots this year against the big bad teams that are going to be coming their way here in a little bit too. That like they can vomit on themselves, and I believe in that. I think that's kind of been their struggle, and I don't know how much they've been able if they'll be able to beat that. I think they feel good coming off of a couple lighter games and against inferior opponents, and technically what they're staring out on paper might look like an inferior opponent. Who knows? They might play with their food. So I think that the Niners will win this game. I don't know how much I believe it, but I'm picking the Niners anyway. So
Well, you can pick against the team. That's okay. It's okay to do these things. I've picked the Eagles to lose and lost every single one that I do. So, I'm right there with you. Like, you can kind of go either way, but no, I agree. I think, Sean McVay and this Rams team have found ways to vomit on themselves, like you said, and screw these ball games up at the end in tightly contested games. And these matchups between these two teams are electric. I mean, these are fun matchups. I said it last time. I'll say it every single time. I love playing the Rams. I don't consider them a rival. I don't think many in Santa Clara consider them a rival. It's not that deep. Like, Seattle's a lot deeper, but it's a lot of fun to play this Rams team. It's a lot of fun to see Kyle Shanahan kind of continue to Daddy McVay over there. But this is going to be a fun game. I'm excited for it, but I got to take the Niners this time.
no, absolutely, and I think it's going to be a great game. We love the in-division rival games. It's a huge game. I think both teams are aware of the importance of it. The Niners, the room for error it could give them just in the division alone. Like, I know the Seahawks, and you guys already took care of business. They're all three teams, so like we talked about it early in the year. Like, that was a goal that was important, and the Niners set themselves up to, like, even if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be catastrophic. You guys are still very much in the thick of things in the NFC when it comes to the goal should be, listen, you guys are winning, so just go for the playoffs at this point and hope for the best. Like, yeah, you didn't take a major swing in the trade deadline, but that doesn't, you can probably sneak in as the 7th seed. There's probably going to be 3 NFC West teams in there when it's all said and done. I know the NFC North is probably going to have something to say about that, but I think that you guys are just as well positioned as anybody else, and your schedule will lighten up towards the end there to give you a fighting chance. And it's going to be, the Niners are good, dude. So I think that you're a well-coached team, and you guys are going to be able to hang with the Rams. So I'm excited for it. So, did you have any final thoughts before we switch on over? Okay, so with that being said, guys, we're going to go on over to the defending champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. We came off of a bye week and received some fortunate news that I think before we talk about the Packers of it all, I just want to talk about just some of the news that we got. Obviously, the Eagles are very active during the trade deadline. Not on trade deadline day, but right before, the Eagles acquired cornerback Jair Alexander, and before that, cornerback Michael Carter II, and we traded for linebacker, edge rusher Jalen Phillips from Miami. So that was kind of the big trade of the three. We traded him for a 3rd-round pick. And all of a sudden, coming out of this bye week on our defense, we all of a sudden have depth, right? We got Jacorian Bennett coming back here soon. Nolan Smith is going to be coming off of IR. They opened his practice window. Brandon Graham has returned. All of a sudden, it just seems like we have 7 edge rushers now. And, like, cool, great. Like, we're probably going to need all of them to make this run. And we're going to need to test out a lot of different things at corner. I don't think it's guaranteed that either of the corners we traded for play. Like, I don't think that, Jair and because Jair is an interesting one. He's obviously 2-time All-Pro. So, like, he's done some stuff in his career. But I've also, being his opponent for the past few years, have kind of felt like he's been a little overrated. So for me to come in here and say that, like, oh, yeah, he's totally going to be corner number 2 when he couldn't even get on the field in Baltimore. And they were going through it, and they still are going through it. But so he's a good veteran. He's a good depth piece. I'm not sure how I feel about him. Same with Michael Carter. He's a bit of an unknown because of his injuries. Jalen Phillips, you know what? I've seen some of his film. He still has his burst, even though he tore his ACL and his Achilles. But that looms, right? And there's a very good possibility that Jalen Phillips is just a rental. Even though he's 26 years old, he doesn't have a contract through next year. The Eagles have a lot of guys we got to pay. And there is a possibility that we just want a dude to help us win the Super Bowl. And I think that, part of me, Ben was telling me some names and I was like, oh, I can't, that Myles Garrett trade to the Eagles is going to hit so hard. This dynasty's going to, go crazy. But we switched it up and went this way, and I was totally fine with it. I think we didn't have to sacrifice too much. We still have 8 picks in the upcoming draft. Howie did his thing. It's good to take chances. So he made trades earlier in the year. We got Tank, and he cooked in the Giants game, so maybe we just found out some momentum with him. So he's made some moves to try and bolster this roster, and I think we're in as – I look around the rest of the league and some of these other teams that made the trades. The Colts made a trade. The Cowboys made a trade. The Eagles were making trades, I know, but like the big trades that happened weren't with any of the top contenders. Like the Colts trying to make themselves a true contender by their trade for Sauce Gardner. But like and the Eagles made moves and I was like, okay, so all of a sudden we're loaded again on the defensive side of the ball. We may have some questions, but we have more bodies to throw at it now. So maybe by the end of the season we can figure something out. We're in a good spot. So I'm back to feeling like we're 6-2. We're in the top of the NFC, but right now because the team that we're about to play choked away their opportunity against an inferior opponent, and I feel really good coming out of the bye week. We got rested, we got healthier, and everything went our way over the course of the weekend to end up in the 1 seed. So, in terms of what we're gonna see on Sunday, I'm not sure. Or on Monday, I'm not sure because we're playing Monday. The Eagles go on like a Thursday to Sunday schedule. So I'm a little limited with the info that I have, but I feel confident that we're going to be as healthy as we have been because of the break that we got in the bye week. So what were your initial thoughts when you saw, the flurry of trades that came the Eagles' way when, Jair or Jalen, did any of those, move the needle for you at all, considering how the Niners, kind of stood pat?
Yeah, I think the Jair and Jalen, like the thing what it did for me was just kind of it made me realize that this team is just looking for the depth at this point. Like, you had a cornerback problem. Now you've solved it in a lot of ways for the season. For this season, you've solved it, barring injury, of course. Jair is the kind of plug and play player where you can kind of throw him in a system defensively, and he's really smart. Like, he is adjusted to multiple systems. He's the kind of guy that just kind of goes out there and makes plays. The problem is his health. And like this season so far hasn't been great for him. Like, I think he's played 2 games, and one of the games for the Ravens, like he gave up 5 catches in that game. So the consistency is another thing you kind of question, but it's like, in my opinion, you really couldn't get worse in that position, in that cornerback position, other than like completely losing a player. So I like the move. I think getting Jair really did make you guys better in that standpoint. Now, same thing, apply the same thing I just talked about to Jalen Phillips in that defensive line. And I think you guys have filled some holes. And that's like all you really want at the trade deadline for a contending team is you're not looking for necessarily a splash move. You're looking for more a hole filler to take you through the end of the year and go on that run. So I thought it was solid.
Yeah, I think an added bonus to the Phillips move was obviously he has experience with Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio was his defensive coordinator in Miami during his rookie season, where he had a lot of success. So it's someone who understands the system too, which is huge on a team where these guys in Philadelphia. So he'll be able to fit right in and understand exactly what he's supposed to do. And we'll be able to see him as soon as Monday. So I'm excited for all these guys. They're going to have an opportunity. And this Eagles team, I have no idea what to expect, because it seemed like going into the bye week that they had found some answers to questions that they had regarding how they wanted to run the offense and the run game, and how incorporating more under center stuff. I'm not saying they've become an under center team. They're really only running it like 3 to 4 times a game, but even that level of variety has created this version of the offense that looks much more explosive and dangerous. So I think that if AJ was taking last week off with the Giants, with a hamstring injury. He didn't play, so he got the extra week off. So I anticipate that he's going to be ready to go for this game against the Packers. And I think Saquon Barkley tweaked his groin on an explosive play against the Giants. He said he was good enough to come back in the game at that time, but you never know with players how that actually is. But I think with the extra week, he's going to be ready to go and get minutes. But I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if now all of a sudden we start seeing him and Tank Bigsby really actually taking more of a dual role, because I don't mind. I think they offer two different skill sets and can give you a kind of 1-2 punch that some of these great running teams have. So I'm cool with that. But the big story about this Eagles Green Bay game is that Tucker Kraft is not going to be a part of it. Tucker Kraft tore his ACL in their loss to the Carolina Panthers, and he's a huge part. He was arguably playing like the number one tight end in the NFL this year. And you saw what happened when he went out in that game against the Panthers. Jordan Love turned into a pumpkin. Did not play well at all against a very bad Panthers team. Panthers are 5-4. Shout out Haley, my sister's fiance, loves the Panthers. They're doing great. 5-4. You love where you're at. Same record as the Chiefs, right? And you did us all a favor by beating the Packers. I was so happy when that happened. But that's going to be a huge asterisk for the rest of their season. Now he's out for the rest of the year. People are going to hit us with but if we had Tucker, and I get that. It sucks. But now the question is going to be, can Jordan Love and this offense continue to find some magic? Can Matt LaFleur coach this up again? Because they're going to have to change up a lot of what they really like to do. So I think that's going to be that. You texted me, you're like, how do you keep getting away with this? The Eagles do, by getting in these advantageous positions. It sucks, but the reality is the Eagles have a huge advantage on the defensive side now, not having to worry about Tucker Krafts. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing to look out for in this game. If we attack the middle, if we attack that offense differently, knowing that we're just going to have to worry about their receiving core and trying to just slow down that run game. So, and they probably have a different version of it, but he was their guy that they like to use on their version of a tush push, or their QB sneak, where they have Jordan Love lined up and then they move Tucker Kraft into the quarterback spot and he takes the snap and does the sneak. So he was that guy who did that too. So I don't know what the plan is for that moving forward, but this team this is going to be a battle for the number one seed in the NFC. It's going to be a crazy electric game on Monday night at Lambeau Field. The last time Jalen Hurts played at Lambeau Field was the first time he stepped on the field in the NFL, and as a starter and took over for Carson Wentz. He didn't win that game, but he was already down by a significant number. But he had Jalen Hurts. That was the start of his NFL career, was in Lambeau Field. So I think it'll be a very cool opportunity to go back there. Lambeau's always a cool place to play, so I know Monday night's going to be electric. It's going to be an electric setting. Micah Parsons, his first, he thought about getting traded. He could get rid of the Eagles, but, he ends up still having to face them just as many times. So I'm excited to go up against Micah in that defense. I think the Eagles still have the recipe needed to take on that defense. I think, again, we're healthy. I think we can cook their corners. I think we can mitigate that pass rush. They're going to get home to Jalen. Jalen takes a few sacks a game. That's just kind of in his effort to not turn the ball over as much. He will take a sack here and there, even if it means putting us in 2nd and 17. So that's just the way he likes to play, and I'm cool with it because we're winning games, right? So we'll see if we can mitigate that pass rush, and if we can just. I'm super curious to just see if we are going to buy more into under center, if we're going to buy more into the 6-0 linemen that we've been seeing. How effective is this run game going to be against a better defensive line? And I feel really good, though, about this game. I think the vibes coming out of it are incredible. A.J. Brown is still on the Eagles, so everyone can shut up about it, including A.J. So I think, we're in a good spot, guys. I think we're chilling. If you're an Eagles fan, you're 6-2, you're feeling good. So, from an outside perspective, how do you, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
I'm looking forward actually to the adjustment that the Packers make. It's devil advocate in a way, I guess. This is a Packers team that after 2 weeks was calling themselves contenders, dubbing themselves as contenders in the locker room after the game, right? I think the Packers are a joke because every time the Niners have run into them, in the playoffs, especially with Aaron Rodgers during those times, we all know how that ended. So, I've never really believed in Jordan Love that much. I've told you that. I pretty much clocked that from the get. I see the same characteristics of him throwing across the middle of the field at the end of games in a playoff game versus the 49ers as I do this year in the very last game that we just saw. So, yeah, very lucky he didn't get picked off there. So this game, I'm looking to see how the Packers adjust. This is not the best opportunity for them to just adjust and go out there and try and, get a win and think it's going to be all easy. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think defensively, if your wide receivers are cooking, it's going to be a long day for the Packers. If that pass game continues to flow the way it's been the last basically 4-ish weeks, 5 weeks, you're going to be fine. Like, this should be a not necessarily a cruise fest, but I don't think you'll feel the pressure from Green Bay. But it's Lambeau Field. It's a loud environment. I mean, it's hard to go in and dominate the Packers in any shape or form in Lambeau Field. So I'm really just looking at the Packers in this one because I kind of know how the Eagles operate now. I haven't watched them as much as I have this year and in the past years. I know how this team operates. They're going to continue to do more of what they do, and that's, a balanced game, which is the best version of the Eagles. So I'm watching the Packers. That's really what I'm going into this one for.
No, I love that. I think this game is a lot on the line. I think the Eagles would benefit so much, especially since the Lions lost last week too. If they could just beat the Packers, it gives them room to lose to the Lions if they have to. They're very much in contention for this 1 seed. I need the Niners to win for that reason too, to keep the Rams off our tails. Yeah. You know, the tiebreaker. That's the thing. The Eagles have done their part early in the season, and we own a lot of tiebreakers against the Bucks and the Rams, and we're feeling pretty good about that. So that's going to be huge if we can get another tiebreaker against one of these top contenders, especially a team like the Packers, who the tie makes them weird, where they can sneak in with a weirder record just because of the tie. So I think if we can get that tiebreaker with them and kind of mitigate a little bit of that threat, that would be nice to have. But man, like the Eagles, we're about to learn a lot about the Eagles here in the next 5 games. We got some really tough opponents. 4 out of the next 5 games, I think, are it's the Packers this week, Lions next week, then the Bears on Black Friday. So it's going to be, so we've got 3 games in 11 days. So this stretch right here is potential, but we get a little mini extended break after the Friday game. But I mean, taking a beating, we're playing 3 NFC North teams. So it's like, it's just, this is it. This is a little mini gauntlet against the toughest division, one of the toughest divisions in football. It's just, it's going to be an interesting set of games for the Eagles that we're going to learn a lot about them. And I think we're going to be, I'm excited to see it though.
All right. Having heard that now, 3 games in 11 days, this is a huge game for the Eagles. You need this one because, like, that's a lot of football. I mean, 2 games in 11 days, and you're like, whew, like, now you're stacking 3. Yeah, this is a big game now. Like, the implications of this game, in my opinion, just got larger. I think for that reason, getting out of Lambeau with a win, you're going to feel like you've got a bit of a cushion going into these next 2 games. So that's pretty interesting.
On top of that, we got a massive rest advantage too. Like, we had the additional day coming off of a bye week and going into a Monday. Like, we should be the ones that are more physical. We should be aggressive here on the road against the Packers. We have kind of been big brothers to this team for the past 2 years, 2 to 3 years now, since Jalen really has started popping off. So since 2022, I'd say. It's just, so it's going to be a highly contested matchup. I think I'm very curious to see how many tush pushes we run. Just in the sense that that was the team. The Packers were the team that kind of started it all, and we even used the one when the Eagles won the tush push vote, that they used the Packers game as the push on logo. So this game's gonna have a little more juice to it. So I think that it sucks that they're not going to be at full strength, but it is what it is. That means we have to really take care of business out there. And I have all the faith in the world in this defense, especially now with the depth that we have. I'm curious to see who we start at cornerback too. Adoree Jackson might be out of this game. And so if that's the case, there is a real chance that Jacorian Bennett might get the nod. Just because I don't know. I think they might want to take a dart throw on him. This is a game to do it, especially since we're going to be seeing some interesting defensive line rotations. I have no idea what to expect there too. But I think that the Eagles, I'm really antsy because like I believe that we're gonna come out there and just punch them in the mouth. I just have that like feeling. But I also think it's gonna be a close game because the Packers are a good team. The Packers play up to their competition and obviously play with their food a little bit, losing to the Browns and the Panthers, right? So they'll step up. They beat the Lions week 1. They beat the Commanders week 2. But now, the Lions looks better now, but it was also week 1. That was a weird thing. They just got Micah, right? So it's like the Packers, I don't know how much I believe in them either because they haven't shown me anything outside of, consistently losing to us. So I'll give my keys in 1 second here, but what are you thinking about this?
Well, I have a piece of history that's interesting, but it doesn't really apply necessarily to the game. So I want to get your keys, and then I want you to toss it back to me because this is an interesting little thing.
Okay, bad. So keys to the game. Offense. Just be balanced. Jalen Hurts, don't turn the ball over. Just keep doing what you're doing. If that means, hey, if it's your time to throw for 250 and 3 tutties, go for it. Or if it's Saquon and Tank show again and they're running for 150 each, I'm chilling. But don't turn the ball over. Continue to do what you guys do. Outside noise be damned. Just do you. Show us some stuff, and I'm excited. I'm excited against a good defense. Can our offensive line hang with Micah Parsons and not let him wreck the game, not let him get in the way? The Eagles usually have a good strategy against Micah Parsons. It's, hey, put Lane Johnson in front of him, and that seems to do the job. He's terrified of Lane Johnson. So so I think if we can slow down Micah, we're going to have the ability to cook their cornerbacks. So if we can mitigate that pass rush, we'll be just fine. On the defensive side, let's force Jordan Love into pumpkin mode. Let's get him under pressure. Let's dare him to beat us because I don't know if he's going to be able to. He's going to make a couple big plays. He's going to break the pocket. He's going to find Christian Watson for a big play. Like, that's going to happen at least once. But if we can just force him into a turnover or two, I think we're sitting pretty, and it's going to be a fairly solid win. I think the Eagles, this is going to be a good game, but I think it's going to be a statement game for the Eagles. I'm going to have them winning 34-24.
I have them winning 34-29, and I have a reason for it, and I'm going to get right into that bit of history that I was talking about. So this is a little article by Newsweek. This is by Matt Odlet. He's a sports writer for Newsweek. So he says, Philadelphia will look to continue its positive momentum in style, selecting a rarely seen uniform combination for Monday night's matchup against the Packers. The Eagles will wear black helmets, white jerseys, and black pants, marking just the second time in franchise history that the team has worn this combination. The first and only other time Philly wore that combination was in the last year's regular season opener against the Packers in Brazil. They debuted that uniform combination as a homage to Brazilian soccer team SC Corinthians, the hosts of last year's Week 1 matchup at Corinthians. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the last time, like I said, that they wore that, they won 34-29. The Eagles did. So that's why I'm taking 34-29, because you're running back the jerseys. You're running back the matchup. I got faith in them.
I love that. I didn't know that's what the combo they were going with this week. So that's great. What a find by you. Good stuff. I know you pulled the article, so that's super sick. No, that's something the Eagles do like to do. They tried doing that. They really do pay attention to these jersey combos that they give to themselves, because they did the same thing with the New York Giants. They tried to in that game. So after they had lost to the Broncos, they tried to get energy in a uniform that they hardly lose in when they wore the green with the black pants. Jalen loves that uniform. So that was that's the one that was a combo he personally created for the team that they use. So for them it's not surprising that they would go 2-1 against a team that they've beaten before and said, hey, you got to face us again. This is going to be, oh, that's nice. I love that. What a good little wrinkle. 34-24 seems even better to me now. That's just aura. I feel really good, especially considering those garbage uniforms the Packers decided to roll out too. I think that was a huge impact in what they've had. If they had those all white ones going on, they would have been a much different story, I think. But those, oh my gosh, those were ugly on the field, man.
Yeah, it just looked like 11 of my dog's turds just running out there at any given time. It was ridiculous. I hate it.
Yeah, it was really bad for those guys. You will have seen pictures of them now. That's what they looked like. It was really bad, guys. Like, not my favorite uniform at all. I understand they're trying to throw it back to the old school, but they could have looked a lot better. All right, guys, I think that's enough on football. So we will be right back. We got some Sacramento Kings to beef about. I'm ready to go. All right, we'll be right back. All right, we are back to talk some Sacramento Kings. And during the break, Ben and I just got ourselves worked up for the Kings portion of this podcast already because we're tuning in. Obviously, it's Wednesday, the day we're recording. They're currently playing the Warriors. We have not tuned into the game because we have the ability to watch it after the fact and be able to watch it on our own time, even though because we're dedicated to you guys. This is our time for the podcast. So the Kings can wait. We can look at their god-awful stats midway through, though. So we'll definitely look at that and see what to expect here in a little bit. But Ben, I want to start this off by giving you an apology. I was wrong, and I enjoy watching Russell Westbrook.
Thank you.
I will not apologize, though, for the veteran take that you had still. I agree. I think Russ is doing things that help us win. Although, in games like the Nuggets, where he did have a good stat line, he did also make a couple boneheaded plays where I was like, man, like if we had those plays back, not just those plays, we'll talk about some other plays. I have some other plays I want to get off my chest, but like he was part of like if we just had a few more of his plays, that would have been sick. But he had a great game against Denver, and he played well against OKC, played well against Milwaukee. Like he's been consistent. So I will give you and concede the Russell Westbrook of it all. But this team full of veterans make way too many mistakes for a team that has as many veterans as they do. And they also, like what I was afraid of, give up too often on plays that require effort and hustle when we need them to step up and do those things that they used to do when they were asked to do the dirty work. Because if we're choosing to play all older dudes, someone's got to do the dirty work. Someone's got to have to be the grunt of the group who does the things that no one else wants to do. And I know that's going to happen. That's going to change here in a short amount of time once we get Keegan Murray back in the fold. But, I'm watching Zach LaVine give up and complain. I'm watching DeMar DeRozan give up and complain. And it's too often that we're watching these guys play 4v5. We will not continue. We will not win games. And even though we did against the Bucks, we will not win games where we allow over 130 points. So I will concede that I have had fun watching this team from time to time. But the problem still remains is I think there's still too many veterans on this team. So that's my opening statement. You can now make your piece.
You're not wrong. And my whole point, I didn't come out here and say we have veterans, we're going to be an elite team. Like, I joke about that because I know damn well they're never going to be an elite team with these guys. But my point with the vets was even if you rolled out all youngsters right now, you're probably having the same record. You're probably not going to win a lot more games. I get that. But where I'm at is these veterans, you know you're going to see Zach LaVine pop off for 25, 30 points most nights because that's what he is. He's an elite shot maker. You're going to watch DeMar DeRozan get to his spot 8 times out of 10, and he's going to hit it 6 times out of 10, and he's going to give you a 20 piece here and there. Russell Westbrook, who I was hyped about, I said it, I continue to stand by it. Yes, I love the plays that he's making, I love the impact he's having. He's explosive. He's fun to watch. And him fouling Giannis as hard as he did 2 times, 2 separate occasions, and just being that dog for our team was cool. But I don't expect them to win a ton of games. I had just hit a point with this Kings team and this organization, really more than the team, where I recognize they're not going to roll out the youngsters. They're not going to give us the satisfaction of a full rebuild. They're going to continue to ram these veterans down Sacramento's throats until we just keep being mediocre and scrape by and make one playoff here and there. Like, that's the ceiling under this management right now, is what it feels like. And again, it's a reality I've kind of just accepted. That's why I have this take on the veterans that I do.
You know, one thing that I really, should consider in all this is, as much as I was praying for the old guy's downfall, there is something good to our boys playing well, right? The Russell Westbrook audition begins every single game. Maybe we can get him to a contender in the trade deadline for something. Maybe something that was more than expected for a guy of Russell Westbrook's value. Maybe someone will want to take on DeMar midway through the season because they're like, we need a true scorer in the playoffs who can knock down all these big shots in the mid-range. Maybe, well, not Domas or Zach, their contracts are untouchable. So it's like we're stuck with them. But, maybe someone does bite on Malik Monk. We need that impact scorer. And maybe that room will open up. But the Kings made a couple moves. So let's pivot onto that, because I think, I don't know that we won't win more games once we get Keegan Murray back, right? So the Kings signed Precious Achiuwa. So a backup, he's played a career backup center, but he plays a valuable role. He's 26 years old, so he's been in the league a while. But he has made an impact previously, just played on the Knicks, and played important minutes for them down the stretch in the postseason. So you get a guy like that, you're bringing him to us, an undersized team, dealing with injuries to Domantas Sabonis, who is playing through a lot. He looked like he got dinged up really bad in Denver, where he was visibly grimacing continuously over and over again, and playing through it, I might add as well. So you add a little bit more depth, and then Keegan Murray comes back. So all of a sudden you're not as tiny in your rotations, because we won't be seeing, I don't think we'll be going a whole game seeing mostly 4-guard rotations, right? I think that's going to be something they'll save for certain moments when they want to get a specific look against a specific team, like the Thunder, like the Warriors, or teams that want to go small on them. Then they have a response, right? So when I look at this team now and I think about the depth overall that we have all of a sudden once we get our size back, then it looks a lot better. Then, like, what the vision is starting, what the vision wants to be is fine. I still think we should give Keon Ellis more minutes. Nick Clifford looks exciting. Like, I want to see more of him. He makes impact plays. He bounces out of the gym. He was making that putback dunk he had in Denver was awesome. And, like, he had a moment where he locked up Jamal Murray, and Jamal Murray made some BS on him. Or I was like, that's incredible defense. Like, give me more of that. I want more of Nick Clifford. And he was playing in Denver, first time coming back to Colorado since his, college games. So, I think that was, you saw his aggressiveness. He was taking shots. I was like, this is cool. I don't mind. I like this. Like, keep shooting. Those are going to fall for you, brother. And when they do, you're going to be one of the more talked about players here. And I think that, like, I'm curious to see how much of that happens once these vets start to come back. I think Nick is going to be integral. I think that. But then comes the trade deadline. And then I wonder about Keon. Because if Nick does pop off, that makes Keon a little bit more dispensable. And it sucks because Keon is such a good defender. So I'm like, these are some of the issues I'm battling with. I really wish now, my stance on the whole point guard situation is, I really wish we didn't sign Dennis. If this is what we were going to get out of Russ, and with the guard situation we have now, like, Dennis has had some decent moments so far, but we have not been that great with him on the floor. So I just, like, that's how I feel, and that's kind of where I'm at right now with some of these moves.
I want to bounce this idea off you that I just kind of thought of when you mentioned that whole trade deadline thing. Do you think there was kind of a under the table agreement between Scott Perry and Russell Westbrook, which is why we signed both of them, where he's saying like, Russ, come over to Sacramento. I'll give you a contract and you play as hard as you can for us, do as much as you can to kind of build an identity here, and I'll trade you to a contender on the trade deadline. I wonder like if that's a thing, and that's why like that if that was the case, theoretically if that was the case, it makes the Dennis signing make sense. Because then you need Dennis at that point. Without Dennis, you run into the same issue as the second half of last year. You need a point guard. So I don't know. I just got to thinking about that. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and I guess, that's the thing we're going to have to deal with the first half of the season is accepting the fact that these are the players on the roster, and they are going to have to find minutes for the veterans because the veterans that's just how it works in the NBA. The guys who play more, they earn their role. They will get their role over some of these guys who have to prove it. So, maybe the vision starts to come to life in the trade deadline. So maybe I just need to come back and reserve my judgment until I see if post-trade deadline Russ and Dennis are still here at the same time. Then I wonder, okay, so we really are just going to go for a full season of Russ, which I'm okay with if Russ continues to play like this, though consistently throughout the rest of the season, it would be a great year for him. Like the numbers he's putting up, this is a good year, man. Solid point guard play, like that's solid. That's what we were asking for, like cool. So, but it does make me, I do pause because like I want the team looks better. Like I'm playing the game I'm watching it with my eyes in the sense of like the team feels and looks better with those guys on the floor, like the young guys who are running around creating chaos, the Keons, the Neek. When we had Neek, Russ, and Keon on the floor at the same time, our defense against Denver was awesome. Like we were in their way, and we had Drew Eubanks who was playing decent defense as well, and I forget who the other person was, but like theoretically, once Keegan comes back, you insert Keegan in that 4 spot with Eubanks if you want to give Domas some rest. We're talking about a freaking awesome defensive lineup with some shooters in there. We can space. Russ has space all of a sudden. Him and Drew Eubanks, he was throwing alley-oops to Eubanks, and Eubanks was looking awesome. So I see potential here. And now who knows with Precious what he brings to the table in terms of like that physicality down low. I don't know him as much of a shooter. Could be wrong. I'm not familiar with his game like that because he kind of has been in the background. But we need more size, and I'm okay with a capable NBA player, even though I believe Isaac Jones could have done the same thing. It is what it is. He's a year older. It's not like it was like, oh, we're sacrificing a second round, 22-year-old for this. So fine, I will concede to that too. So I feel the vision coming on, and I do believe maybe I was a little too harsh on this experience. But I also do think, let me talk about, more veterans. Let me just start an argument with you. What does Zach LaVine do other than putting points on the board? What does he do? Because you're like, oh man, he's scoring 30 points a game. Okay. Oh, all-star. He's an all-star scorer. But what else does he do? Because I watch him and I'm just, I like when he's cooking, he's like, I've never seen a scorer in Sacramento, not ever, but in Sacramento, we don't have a more dynamic scorer. But he's also so inconsistent, and I do think that part of it is not his fault. I do think part of it is the fact that there's 6 other veterans around him who require the ball. So like the fact that he's putting up 30 in the spots are like tough for me because I'm like, I don't know when I watch him. When you pair him with defenders, I can see the vision because he fits really well with them. But in that starting 5, dude, with that defense, what they do, he gives up way too quick. And like he locked down, I watched him put in that effort at the end of the Denver game. And I was like, why don't you do that for the whole game? I know you don't have the same energy, Zach, and I know you got to pick and choose your battles, but you picked the other side too much, in my opinion, if you were supposed to be the guy that we traded De'Aaron Fox for. So I just expect, and you were texting me, you're like, he's hurt. And I was like, you're on the court, bro. Domas was hurt, and he played a really good game against Joker. Like, he did what he could, and his ribs looked like they were shattered. So I'm just like, or his shoulder, or whatever he was doing, he was visibly on his shooting side was visibly hurt the whole game. I didn't even realize Zach LaVine was hurt when you told me. But the one game he doesn't have 30 points in a game that we probably could have used, and he had turnovers, boneheaded plays. I was like, bro, this is the bad side of LaVine. And I could see why Chicago fans are like, this is, Chicago Bulls West over here when they had him and DeMar. So that's kind of like how I feel about LaVine. So tell me what you are seeing in LaVine so far this year that still gives you all this confidence in the world. Not that I'm out on LaVine, but like I expect more. Like I need him to do more to justify, like, anybody can put up 30 points a night. Like, I get that he can do it efficiently, but I want more. So why are you, what do you have? What do you love about LaVine? What do you see in him so far this year that makes you feel differently?
So he's unfortunately like a product of just poor roster construction. Put him on a team put him on OKC where they play a ton of defense and everyone's expected to play like, their top game. Not their top game, but like you put in that effort on a play-by-play basis. Put him on a team like that, and Zach LaVine is one of the better players in the NBA. The problem is, and you were kind of onto it there, in my opinion, like the veterans around him, none of them are bought in defensively. They're bought into doing just enough, maybe just enough. And then they'll try and just put up more offensive production than they do defensive. And so for me, I get what you're saying and I don't disagree. The only thing that Zach does for me is score the basketball, but he does it at the most elite level that we have on our team. And so that to me is invaluable, just like Domas is when it comes to the rebounds. Will Richard has 16 points right now, and there's 6 minutes left in the first half. So like Domas's impact just in being a big body out there to grab rebounds and then to play defense is missed. So it's like, for me, Zach brings a level of offense to this team that without, it's going to be hard to win ball games because you don't play defense enough anyway. So I feel like his offense means so much. That's the reason why, to me, like, you have to look at him and be like, it's not just empty stats. Because in a game like this, where you're letting, Golden State pop off on you in the first half, you need to still find ways to keep up. And I mean, it takes the entire team at that point. DeMar DeRozan is going to be one of the guys that like you got to look at and be like, are you going to step up? So I don't know. That's, to me, like, I love what I see from Zach offensively. Defensively, he could do more, but he does enough offensively.
Okay, so let's table this conversation here. What would be your ideal once Keegan Murray gets back? What's the lineup you're looking to see for like your starters and your bench?
I would like to see Russell Westbrook. Yeah. Honestly, my like dream lineup for this team would be Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine, Nick Clifford, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. Like, that to me is sick because you've got two guys out there in Nick Clifford and Keegan who can basically switch 1 through 4, 1 through 5 and hold their own. So you have a switchability effect on defense with two guys. And then you've got enough firepower out there in Zach LaVine that, you're like, man, he can actually kind of get our offense going. And Domas is going to hold down the boards. Like, Russ is going to facilitate. If Russ is not there, I would say at that point, yeah, you go with Dennis. But I think that's probably my 5.
I think for the starting lineup 5, that would be cool. I think that, with Russ included, I would probably have the same. And no offense to DeMar, just because, in an ideal world, I just want more versatility. DeMar is a killer, and I'm surprised they don't play him off the bench more because you get matched up on so many dudes you would cook every single time. Like, you could still put up the same number of points playing up against the scrubs every single day. And I get that's not how you want to be as a competitor, but I do think like the Kings would benefit from it greatly. And that's the part where I hate it because like every game we're talking about DeMar, and listen, his impact is there. He's playing, he's still a vet. I love it all, but like his minutes per game 38, 40, 39, 40. I'm like, guys, like give Keon Ellis like a little bit more of those minutes. Let Neek take some of that burden. We don't need a DeMar bucket every possession. If we were like, that's the problem with Levine too. He's stuck. Like I get like having different killers on the floor. That's great, but we just have too many guys who feel like they can be, and that's fine. That's a cool thing to have, but like I don't know. I find that's the argument. That's the hard part. Because I watch the game and I'm like, okay, they're putting up points, and then they give up big plays on defense, or they don't get a rebound, even with Domas on the floor, and I'm just like, guys, like I need more. But I think Keegan fixes a lot of those issues, and I think they were mentioning this on the broadcast. It's different than him having a lower leg injury. He's coming back from thumb surgery. His endurance is going to be there, so we won't have to worry about his athleticism. It's just going to be his shooting. But we have enough shooters. If his shooting takes some time, I'm fine with that too. He's the best one. He is the best forward defender that we have on this roster. So I need him back. I need to see what this team looks like when I can see a lineup potentially of Keon, Neek, Russ, Keegan on the floor at once. Like that would be the most insane thing to me. So that's what I'm waiting for, and I want to see some of these pieces come back. And then our bigs. I like Drew, but we have Precious too. Can we play both of those guys at the same time? That's the problem that I'm trying to figure out too. So, and Precious he's a bigger body, but he's still only like 6'8", 6'9". He's an undersized center. So
One, I don't think you can play them together because like Precious doesn't spread the floor, neither does Drew. So it would be a clogged paint.
yeah, so I don't know, man. So there's still questions. Don't get me wrong, but we do have more big bodies. And I also like one thing that they mentioned during the Nuggets game that I also wish, because like, yes, he had moments in that game where he was getting cooked and he's older and slower, but like we traded Jonas for Dario Saric, and Saric is doing jack, and we could use a guy like Jonas right now. And that stings a little bit too, where I'm just like, they could have just kept him. Like they had the money and they had the opportunity, but he doesn't fit the vision. But I just think that like for what we need rebounders. We need guys who can be physical around all of these explosive guys we had. I just don't see. That was one mistake that I wish we changed during the offseason.
Yeah, the Valanciunas thing makes no sense to me. I think that was probably the worst move so far that Scott Perry's made. And it's a pretty bad one because I'm like, there's no sense about it. But yeah, man, I think this team is going to look a lot different as the season goes on. I mean, you're already seeing a better turnout offensively, or a turn from these guys offensively, because you're seeing that chemistry build. These are a lot of new guys playing with each other. Like this takes time, and one of your main facilitators and Russell Westbrook and Dennis, like these guys are new to your ball team as well. So once you kind of figure out a rhythm of this team offensively, I think things will kind of settle into place. And then you, like you said, you get Keegan back, and that, like, Keegan already is going to bring a level-headed sense to the court when it comes to just playing gritty on both ends. And I agree. I don't need him to shoot. Initially, you're not going to be needed to put up a ridiculous amount of points. You're needed out there to switch defensively, to make things difficult and be a lengthy wing. That's something that the NBA desires right now. And then when your three ball starts falling, guess what? You're turning into an elite 3-and-D. So this team's going to look different. And this team is going to look different not just later this season. This team's going to look different after the trade deadline. This team's going to look different next year. Like, this is Scott Perry's new team. If he's granted enough of a lead on his leash, then he'll be able to probably build a pretty decent team, because Scott Perry has shown that before. But it really just comes down to what we started this whole freaking conversation and argument about, and that's the management position. Like, it comes down to the ownership of Vivek Ranadive.
And you know what? I will do my best. I'm still going to hate on certain things just because I want more. I expect more. I expect more from the players that we have on our roster, just because I guess I'd like that standard to be set a little higher. Just I don't want to settle for mediocre. I know that's what we're being shoved down our throat, but we're gonna be 4-10, coming up here shortly. But who knows? Like we beat the Bucks by one, but both of our wins have been by 1 point, and a lot of our losses haven't been brutal either. So it's just like we need to, if we can swing a few of these games, make things at least semi exciting to watch. For maybe hopefully the cup games are lit. Like that's what I'm hoping for here. But yeah, I mean we're playing the Warriors team without their three best dudes, and what's their score right now?
57-62 at halftime, Warriors.
Okay, so we're hanging in there. So we'll see. There's a shot. We'll see, guys. All right, guys. I think that's it on the Kings talk. Did you have any final thoughts or anything?
I'm good, man.
Hell yeah. All right, guys. So with that being said, this was episode 109 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. For all you guys watching on YouTube, all of our links to our descriptions for our socials are up above. For all the audio listeners out there, the links to the descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, review, and follow the show. We appreciate all your love and support as we go week by week. Let us know, for you Niners fans, how excited you are against your rival Rams. How easy do you guys think it's going to be this time around, round 2? Are you going to sweep them, bring out the brooms? For the Eagles fans, we got a big one on Monday night. Are we excited? For all you guys who, like myself, who don't have who have YouTube TV, are you guys buying ESPN like I am too? Like, do we have to do this right now? So, let us know how we're feeling. Can we get YouTube TV back up by Monday night? Come on, Disney. Come on, YouTube TV. Let's make it work. Please, I need this. I'm paying money for this shit. Bro, please. And then for you Kings fans out there, do you like what you're seeing? Like, let me know. Is it good? Is it bad? Who do you want to trade first? Let me know. Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear it from you guys. All right, guys. With that being said, I'm Marcos Conan Negron. Beside me here, as always, is
Ben the Jet Reds.
All right, y'all. We love y'all. We will talk to you next week.
Peace.